Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video where we talk about the top 15 tight end rankings for week 8. You ready?
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
Boom, boom, boom.
Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
All right, before we get started, let me remind you a couple things. First, I love tight end rankings. Second, I don't really care too much about rankings because you're going to play your tight ends regardless of who you have. So this video is about pointing out some tight ends that are trending. And I'm going to immediately go ahead and start with last week's rankings at the end of the week so you can see how they performed. So if we look here, I'm trying to look for some standouts. Now you got Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Taysom Hill, Gerald Everett. He was the 6th ranked. Dalton Kincaid, Mike Gesicki. Those are two names that you didn't really hear about all season. You got Pharaoh Brown. I've heard about him this season. And then you got Cade Otton, Foster Moreau, Trey McBride, and here you go. You got, I look for tight ends. You only need the top 16 because there's only one tight end spot. So these are a couple people. Now, this also comes into play because now buys are happening. And if you're looking for a tight end just to throw into that starting lineup, this is where you need to choose from. So with that being said, we're going to get into this week's rankings, and it's mostly going to be name brands, I can guarantee you. All right, let's get started on some of that. Ready? At number 1, who you guessed it, Travis Kelce at the Denver Broncos. What did Kelce do last week? I don't know. He was the number 1 tight end. Probably was the number 1 receiver. Had 179 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and that is what you expect with him. At number 2, you got Mark Andrews at the Arizona Cardinals. Mark Andrews, he had 2 receiving TDs for 63 yards. It was those 2 receiving TDs that got him over the edge. At number 3, you have TJ Hawkinson at the Green Bay Packers. So far, there's no surprises, but TJ Hawkinson had 86 receiving yards and was banged up in week 7. At number 4, you got Sam Laporta, home versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, this was a little subpar game from Laporta, in my opinion. He had 52 receiving yards, but that Detroit Lions did not have a lot of yardage, and it was okay. He did well, but you expected him to be a little bit better than that because he was their 10th ranked tight end. And now we're putting him as going to be the 4th ranked tight end, so I think that's a little stretch. Number 5, George Kittle versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, George Kittle had 78 receiving yards. The ball was targeted at him a bunch. He could have had a lot more, but that was only good. Let's see, ranked 42. That doesn't seem right. All right, let's move on now. Number 6, Darren Waller versus the New York Jets. Darren Waller was the 3rd ranked tight end. He had 98 receiving yards, 1 receiving TD. He was the 3rd ranked tight end. But let's look at that offense. 279 yards, 2 TDs, one of them to Darren Waller. That's pretty good. And I think that can continue. But those New York Jets are stingy. At number 8, Dallas Goedert at the Washington Commanders. So if we look here, he was the 4th ranked tight end, had 77 receiving yards, 1 receiving TD. He was good, and that's what you expect from Goedert. Number 8, you got Evan Ingram at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Evan Ingram, what did he do? He had 45 receiving yards. Something's wrong with that stats for Kittle, but he had 45 receiving yards, and he was the 14th ranked tight end. At number 9, you got Kyle Pitts at the Tennessee Titans. Kyle Pitts, He had 47 receiving yards. He was the 13th ranked tight end. And look, you almost had two. You had John O. Smith was the ranked 20th. And then you got Kyle Pitts. He had 47 receiving yards. Let's go to number 10. You got Dalton Kincaid versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What did Dalton Kincaid do? Well, he had 75 receiving yards, and he was targeted 8 times. At number 11, Dalton Schultz at the Carolina Panthers. What did Schultz do in Week 7? I guess he was on bye. If we go back the week before, he was the second-ranked tight end, so we expect good things with Dalton Schultz. At number 12, you got Cole Kmet at the Los Angeles Chargers. Cole Kmet did not have much going on in Week 7. Week 6, he had 9 receiving yards. That's not cutting it, so I'm surprised that he's so high in the rankings. At number 13, David Njoku at the Seattle Seahawks, and he had 54 receiving yards, and that is what he did. He was the 9th ranked tight end for Week 7. At number 14, you got Logan Thomas versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Logan Thomas, he had 51 receiving yards, and this is what he looks like on the season with his rankings. Kind of all over the place. That's what you expect with kind of Sam Howell, but Logan Thomas, you might have to give him a chance. At number 15, you have Jake Ferguson versus the Los Angeles Rams. Now, I think this is the surprise pick for me, in my opinion. Jake Ferguson hasn't been that spectacular. He was in the top 10 2 out of the 6 weeks he's played. They were on bye last week, so that's what that looks like there. So I think they're expecting him to do fairly well. I think it's a little bit of a stretch. And the thing I see about all tight ends is there's nothing exciting there. You're just going with these name brands. There's no risks. Nobody's giving you some trends and some tight ends to look out for. That's why you got to look at those rankings to see who's been performing of late. All right, that's going to do it for our tight end rankings. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good week.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.
Rolling on the field.
The Fantasy Goodfellas.